This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and you guessed it, I'm your host, April. If you're a returning listener and a part of the Teachable Moments with April podcast family, welcome back. For those who are checking me out for the first time, well, hello and welcome. To everyone listening, look for the teachable moments that are all around us. Enjoy and be encouraged. This is your host, April. So there's an emerging story that is little by little coming to light in regards to East Palestine, Ohio. If you guys will remember, there was a chemical plume from February 2023 from a trail derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that spread air pollutants to at least, now they're saying, 16 states, according to research published Wednesday in the Journal of Environmental Research Letters. I cannot find the article now, but out of the 16 states, Illinois is one of them. I can't find that now, but I will share with you here on my 2 cents. Is it just me? What information that I can find about this emerging data about the contamination spreading, okay, to other states. So the first source that we're going to look at is from The Hill. It says East Palestine derailment chemicals reached 16 states, according to research. I would like to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not, because it was it was catastrophic. It was mishandled, and those poor people over there, my prayers and my wishes go out to them. It was insane what I learned, what I saw when they covered it, and how people are trying to pick up the pieces after something so catastrophic. So it says the chemical plume from the February 2023 train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, spread air pollutants to at least 16 states, according to research published Wednesday in the journal Environmental Research Letters. This was actually published 3 days ago. It says the cloud, created as part of a controlled burn of the spilled chemicals, reached as far north as New England and possibly as far south as North Carolina, according to researchers from Wisconsin State Laboratory of Hygiene at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They found the overall radius spanned more than 40, let me not say that, 540,000 square miles. Did you guys hear what I said? 540,000 square miles. No one was injured or killed in the crash, which spilled toxic chemicals including vinyl chloride. But local residents complained of rashes and the death of animals, and have expressed concerns about potential long-term health impacts that may not have been evident in the immediate aftermath. Now it says researchers analyzed ground samples from between January 31st and February 14th of last year, a period spanning the time before and immediately after the February 3rd accident. They found evidence of high chloride concentration in states including Virginia, South Carolina, and Wisconsin. Now, the article that I read earlier that I cannot find, no matter what, it actually gave all of the states, and Illinois was one of them. Okay, it says, as well as particularly high concentrations near Canada's border with New York, an area downwind of the crash site. Although the pollutants dissipated in the weeks after the accident, yeah, okay, they also found that the precipitation in the affected areas was less acidic than expected. Now they said precipitation in the Northeast is typically between 5.2 and 5.8 on the pH scale, which indicates more acidity. The lower the score, it was lower than that at the time of the year the accident occurred. However, the researchers found unprecedentedly high or more basic pH values across a broad belt in the Midwest and Northeast. Okay, they also found levels of elevated alkaline and earth metals in some cases within the 99th percentile of measurements for the last decade. Then the article ends with, all of these pollutants are important in the environment because their accumulation has an impact on the Earth's aquatic and terrestrial environments in many ways. Lead author David Gay, lead researcher and coordinator of the National I'm tongue-tied today, Atmospheric Deposition Program, said in a particular statement. All right, so now I'm at the Washington Post. Pollution from East Palestine train derailment rained down in 16 states, study says. Okay, published 3 days as well. Then they have a picture of like this huge, humongous, grayish black, plume. Oh my God. It says on February 3rd, 2023, a train carrying toxic chemicals crashed in northeastern Ohio, sending up a large black cloud, oh yeah, I see the picture, over Ohio and Pennsylvania after officials decided to burn off the hazardous materials. As the chemicals lofted into the air, the pollution spread as far as 16 states, according to the new study. I didn't expect to see an impact this far out, said David Gay, the lead author of the study. There's more going on here than most people would have guessed, including me. It says toxic chemicals rained down from South Carolina to Wisconsin to New England following the accident, according to the new analysis in this particular Environmental Research Letters journal. Overall, the pollution spread, and we already said how many square miles, and then they broke it down into 14% of U.S. land area. People closer to the accident reported rashes, nausea, and headaches, but Gay said the low chemical concentrations farther away from the accident weren't toxic, but are pretty unusual at a lot of places. Many of these pollutants can run off and affect marine and plant life. No kidding. It's not death and destruction. It's not. It's fairly low concentrations, but they are very high relative to the normal that we typically see. Some of the highest we've measured in the last 10 years. Okay. The accident occurred around 9 p.m. on February 3rd near East Palestine, a town of almost 50. Oh boy, I messed it up today. 5,000 residents on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. Now, the train operated by Norfolk Southern experienced a mechanical issue that caused more than 50 cars to derail. Now, some of the trains were carrying hazardous materials, including a known human carcinogen called vinyl chloride. Now, in an emergency decision, officials authorized a controlled burn of the hazardous chemicals to prevent a catastrophic explosion. I get that. But as the vinyl chloride burned, it broke into separate chloride and hydrogen ions in the atmosphere that got carried by the wind to other locations, 16 states. When it began to rain in various places, the pollutants were pushed from the air and deposited on the ground. Now, it says the National Atmospheric Deposition Program at the University of Wisconsin in Madison collects these ground samples weekly across 260 sites across North America. Now, Gay, who serves as coordinator of the program, routinely analyzes the data to monitor air pollutants. Now, there is actually looks like there is a particular graph, okay, or map, and it says underneath it, areas with abnormally high chloride ion concentrations the week of and the week after the East Palestine train derailment are shown, and then there are different colors of yellow, different shades of mustard. It says yellow circles show measurements in the 90th percentile or above compared to the last decade. East Palestine, and I see it, is marked with a star. It goes on to say, initially, Gay expected to see only a few abnormally high chloride signals nearby in Pennsylvania, but the impact was much higher than he anticipated. The high chloride concentrations span as far as Virginia, South Carolina, and Wisconsin. The highest concentrations were located near the Canadian or Canada-New York border, which was downwind, they said in the previous article. It said the pollutants disappeared within 2 to 3 weeks after the accident. See, I'm going to stop here. I'm not a scientist, obviously, but just because, I'm not trying to be mean, but I've watched how actually here where I'm at, different things have happened, and things of tankers or different things, chemicals have escaped, an accident, a seepage, and then it goes into the air and it dissipates, and then they cover it saying, oh, it dissipated, everything's okay. But just because you can't see something or it's not visibly in the air, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong for this, doesn't mean that everything is okay. Okay, that's just how I feel. And we've had many here, and it's they mention it in the news, but it's kind of very, I know they don't want to, you don't want to cause a panic, okay? It might just be dissipated, but I feel like it's kind of just, it's covered, it's spoken of, but yet it's not, they're not really telling you the truth, okay? And I don't know if they're following it, and like these people collecting information after it. There have been many of them here in the past, I'd say 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and I'm like, just because it dissipated doesn't mean, it's just like when we're talking about things in the about the Bible, and we're talking about the spiritual realm. Just because you don't see these things with your physical eyes doesn't mean that the spiritual realm doesn't exist. It does. It's very much real, and there's influences and things moving through it. Good, God, His Son, the angels, and all that good stuff, but you also have the bad stuff, the devil, the fallen angels, okay, and other evil spirits and different things of that nature. Wow, okay, it says the data also showed another unusual trend for the researchers. They go into, again, explaining about the rain, okay, that typically rain without pollutants is a bit acidic, meaning it has a good amount of hydrogen ions. However, the collected samples show less hydrogen ions than usual. This is so, wow. It says Gay suggests that metals emanated from the fire. This is what I saw in the original one that I really should have wrote it down and went back to it. Like calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium help to suck up a bunch of those hydrogen ions that are normally present in our atmosphere. This was something that I seen on YouTube, and they mentioned these particular chemicals or metals, as they say, okay, but I don't get a good feeling about it. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, nor will I ever be one at this point of my life, but they made sure, they said, oh, it's just, it's these metals, these are chemicals, or whatever how you want to say it, and everything's okay, but you get something in the pit of your stomach, and you've seen how, like I said, epic it was in East Palestine. Now you're saying this. And Miss Mary has been saying this for the longest time. Going out in the atmosphere, going out, something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. I don't think we're the only people, and I don't think Miss Mary is the only person either, or myself. They're like, something's not adding up here. Something is up in this, and it's so much going on. It's just not even funny. It says this study is unique and elegant as it clearly documents the impact that these kinds of accidents can have, says Julie Ann Baer, a leading expert on the effects of vinyl chloride at the University of Pittsburgh, who was not involved actually in this study. But she said it is not the first time researchers have seen distal effects of local environment events, and it's unclear what long-term impact, it can't be good, such environmental exposures could have on communities. If it's already, oh my God, 16 states, and it was last year in February, are you kidding me? I think it should be concerned. I think we should be concerned. That's what this lady said, Julie Ann Baer. And you know what, Julie Ann Baer, I agree. Let me read it again. I think we should be concerned. Now, there was also an article by UPI News, and they have something very similar. A lot of the articles do, but they have something that is different in here. A few key points that I just want to bring up. Let me kind of skim through this. They're basically saying about a variety of things. Okay. The study estimates that the toxic chemicals affect about 110 million U.S. citizens from the Midwest. Okay? And they mentioned some of the other places that they did, but key points like Minnesota, Wisconsin, New England. The study says the chemicals are even found as far as Tennessee, North Carolina, and far to the north. Okay? And they speak of Ontario, the southern part of Ontario and Canada. Then it goes on to say, I'm going to scroll down. Okay. Now they mentioned in here the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, which said it is aware of the study but has yet to review it. It previously had confirmed that the train cars carried vinyl chloride, benzene, ethanol glycol, monobutyl ether, and some other ones that I can't pronounce. Three others. The chemicals are associated with a range of various, I bet they are, of various acute and chronic adverse health effects depending on the level and frequency of exposure. And then I found this to be important. The findings in the study run counter to news and information released last year in which experts originally claimed Canada likely would not be on the receiving end of any toxic chemical spread related to this particular derailment. Now, I vaguely heard of, but I didn't watch, something in the news about a possible settlement. It says here the White House in September announced a $1.4 billion dollars for a range of projects to improve railroad safety and repair the industry's tattered infrastructure across the United States via President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. So going back to what I was saying about a possible settlement, I don't know how that all panned out, but I did see something in passing. So I wonder what's going to happen with that. Now I'm scrolling down, and it says the billion-dollar investment was hailed by the Transportation Department, which recently set new training requirements for rail workers as the largest federal investment in rail safety upgrades in the nation's history. Now, my stepfather worked for Amtrak, but he didn't really talk a lot about his job or whatever. I don't really know a lot about, the whole transportation and rail, railway safety and so forth and so on. But with accidents like this, maybe not as extreme or as highly publicized, but you do hear about it. I didn't realize how antiquated the train and railway system was. Yet again, maybe I shouldn't be all that surprised, but things were brought out in this one and other cases like this, in which they have all these accidents, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm surprised we don't have more of them. And I kind of wonder if we do, and they're just not being covered. They're happening, but we're not, because if it's that antiquated, you know what I'm saying? How could it not happen, sadly, So it says the Justice Department said that Norfolk Southern estimates it will spend more than $1 billion on contamination cleanup and mitigating other potential harms, along with proving rail safety, and operations. This is the DOJ and EPA in May announced a $310 million settlement with Norfolk Southern in the derailment. Now, along with a $15 million civil penalty, the settlement will require Norfolk Southern to pay for past and future cleanup costs, enhanced rail safety and health monitoring. Now, it also says Norfolk Southern likewise agreed to a $600 million class action settlement to resolve claims surrounding last year's train derailment. But now some East Palestine residents find themselves hesitant to sign on, and I can't blame them. I can't blame them. And yet again, they have a quote from Julianne Bear that says, I think we should be concerned, And she is a vinyl chloride expert, citing the likelihood of long-term environmental impacts on states and communities. Now, in ABC News, they have also, of course, about this, and it says, let's see, following the derailment, Dr. Aaron Haynes, chair of the University of Kentucky's Department of Epidemiology and Environmental Health, surveyed approximately 400 adults in the East Palestine area around their health effects after the accident. Now, Haynes found that 3 out of 4 residents suffered health impacts after the derailment, and over half of the residents reported their conditions continued through the fall of 2023. So here are some of the things that they reported: nose and eye irritation, coughing and wheezing, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, rashes, and just feeling very fatigued, lethargic, weak, tired were among the symptoms reported, according to Haynes. Then they speak of that particular settlement that in April 2024, Norfolk Southern agreed to a $600 million settlement to resolve a class action lawsuit related to the train derailment. Now, on News Nation, it says the controlled burn was unnecessary. Wow, In March, a National Transportation Safety Board Chair, Jennifer Hamdi, testified before the Senate that the controlled burn and explosion set off in the wake of the derailment could have been avoided. Several pieces of necessary information were not shared with state and local leaders who decided to vent and burn 5 tank cars after being advised by Norfolk Southern contractors at the scene of the crash that it was their only option. There's quoted to saying, by her, they were provided incomplete information to make a decision. An investigation by the NTSB found that Governor Mike DeWine, East Palestine Fire Chief Keith Drabick, and several other officials were told they had minutes to decide whether to vent the train cars or wait and risk an uncontrolled explosion. Now it goes on to quote Jennifer Homedy of the National Transportation Safety Board chair, that's her. There was another option, she said. Let it cool down. Wow. The NTSB later showed the threat of explosion was diminished and that the tank cars were actually cooling when they decided to actually do this controlled burn. I didn't know that. Now they have like a picture and it says, residents plagued with health issues, and it shows a young lady and she has a really bad rash on her neck, her chest, and her face. When East Palestine resident Kathleen and her boyfriend Chris went back home, she broke out in a rash all over her face, and it looks like it's on her neck and her chest. It's very close to her eyes too. Oh my God. It says initial EPA, and Norfolk Southern testing done at the derailment site showed the presence of dioxins, which are the most carcinogenic compounds on the planet Earth. Wow. But officials did not test any of the residents' health. What? Independent testers who visited East Palestine examined the environment and the people. Some tested the soil, others tested the water in local creeks and air filters in homes around the derailment site. Now, I do remember residents on their own phones and posting things, and you could see things on top of the water that you can tell it was heavily chemicals. It wasn't, oh my God, it was like, the independent testing has shown evidence of toxins in the soil, the air, and the water. Residents have been diagnosed with the presence of vinyl chloride in their blood and complained of respiratory issues. Wow. It says the NTSB is expected to hold its final hearing on the derailment next week. All right, so I'm going to end this episode with, or this segment with Newsweek. It said maps reveal pollution fallout from Ohio train derailment, and it talked about the 16 states. It says over a year after a train derailed in a small Ohio town, spilling a cocktail of toxic chemicals into the environment, scientists have mapped just how far these pollutants traveled. Now in theirs they said, they basically give the timeline of when it started. The East Palestine, Ohio train derailment on February 3rd, 2023 involved a Norfolk Southern freight train carrying a variety of hazardous materials. At approximately 8:55 p.m., 38 of the train's cars derailed. The derailed cars included those carrying, of course, vinyl chloride, benzene, among other hazardous substances which were released into the environment after the incident. Now I didn't know this. It says, not this part, a controlled burn of many of the chemicals was performed afterward to prevent an explosion, setting up a plume of black smoke. The smoke may have contained a number of other hazardous chemicals, of course, because that was what was in these 38 cars that derailed. It says including phosphine gas. Now, what is phosphine gas? It is a chemical weapon that was used in World War I, which forms when vinyl chloride is burned. Wow. So along with all of these hazardous chemicals, you have something that is actually was used as a chemical weapon in the First World War. Now, there is no way, in my opinion, that no one knew, no one suspected. There is no way. And all of a sudden, the studies show this. Yeah, okay. No, there's no way. There's no way. You have 38 cars that derailed, and all of them are containing highly hazardous chemicals. And then, on top of what we learned from the previous article from News Nation, from an expert saying that they had another option to let it cool, and it already was cooling. Oh my God. You were just listening to Teachable Moments with April podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode.